Hi everyone, Big Thinny Bambino here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Childish Gambino album, Awaken, my love, Awaken. Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, is back with a brand new album. Really excited to listen to this thing, which was a surprise because I am not really that big of a Childish Gambino fan. But seriously, up until this point, all Donald Glover has done for me is create this really whiny, pitiful rap music that seemed to come from like a really self-centered place, more than that is typical for rap music in my opinion. Whether it be the "nobody gets me" temper tantrum he throws on numerous tracks on the album Camp, or the rich boy blues he seems to be singing on the Because the Internet album, which was a pretty overblown record to say the least, especially considering its 75-page screenplay that came along with this thing. Now, this new album over here, though, Gambino is heading in an entirely different direction. It's such a sudden change of pace, it's hard to believe that this is the same artist. Though, to be fair, Donald was hinting toward being more interested in soul music and R&B on his Stone Mountain mixtape. That was back in 2014, although those desires, those artistic influences, were not manifesting themselves on that project in the way that they are on this new album over here. This thing is a straight funk album. This thing is a straight vintage soul album, which is a sound that is coming back in spades through artists like Anderson .Paak and Chance the Rapper, Kendrick Lamar. Donald on this record, though, takes a very purist approach to the point where it's very clear he's pulling direct influence from artists like George Clinton and Funkadelic and Bootsy Collins, who he samples on the song Redbone. Wouldn't be surprised if he was recently listening to some Meters or maybe some Ohio Players or something. Although, even though he is playing with this older sound, he approaches it with some newer, fresher production. A few touches of auto-tune on his voice here and there for a little added spice, which is executed quite tastefully. And a lot of very clear, clean, punchy percussion on this thing too, a lot of which sounds like it's being hammered out in some kind of sequencing program or something, but still carries a very strong groove. There are lots of fat, funky bass lines on this thing, sharp guitar leads, some beautiful keyboard embellishments and solos. There is an incredible amount of musical talent going into the instrumentals on this thing. Instrumentally, production-wise, I think this album is immaculate. And pretty diverse too, whether it be the grand, showy intro on the song Me and Your Mama, which has these massive vocal layers which are really powerful and inspiring. Great start to the record. I also love the very sensual, silky, and nocturnal Redbone, which is very, very sexy and filled with this fiery passion that I'm just in awe of. The falsetto lead vocals on this track and the classy keyboards are a beautiful touch. And the very dark but kind of soulful grooves on tracks like Zombies and Boogeyman and Have Some Love. And some of the quieter, low-key, subtle ballads on the back end of this record too are sweet as well, like Baby Boy, where Donald is singing directly to his son about what seems like the failing relationship between him and his son's mother. I also really enjoyed the flow of this record too. The first half is a totally different animal from the second half. The ambitious and emotional, hard-hitting highs of the start of the album contrast really well with more emotional spots like Terrified and Stand Tall. There are a lot of good things going for this album. Personally, it's my favorite project Donald Glover has been involved with so far, though I think it would be kind of hard to say, hey, this is his best album, because comparing this album directly to his previous material is kind of like apples and oranges. This thing isn't just different in that it's a different musical style and it's a different vibe. This thing is in a different fucking solar system. Though I will say, comparatively, this thing I think is more mature than anything Donald Glover has done thus far. Now, even though I have lots of praise for this project, this album is not without its flaws. For one, there are a few tracks on here that I feel are a little underwritten, like the song Riot, which is kind of unfortunate because it is one of the most energetic and vibrant tracks in the entire track listing, but it ends really abruptly just after a really short 2 minutes, not sure why. And the song The Night Me and Your Mama Met feels like nothing more than just kind of an extended instrumental interlude that is really faint, definitely not one of the most memorable spots on the record. And the album's only other major issue for me is when it comes to the vocals. And most of the time they're good, and actually I'm pretty in awe of how well Donald sings on this record. The range of emotion and pitch he shows throughout this project is incredible. But there are some moments on here where I think he really overpowers the instrumental. I think he overplays his performance, and It comes off kind of cartoony and obnoxious, like on the songs Boogeyman and Zombies, though I do get it, the song's supposed to be a little creepy. And I do still like the lyrical sentiments of these tracks. Boogeyman talking about race and fear, singing about how with a gun in your hand as a black man, I'm the boogeyman. And then the song Zombies being about parasitic people who are trying to leech off your fame, your success, your money. And the song California is really inexcusable. You know you're being annoying here, and you just don't even care. The vocal performance on this track, super questionable, as it is pretty much just like strained, auto-tuned moaning for the entirety of the track. It's like Donald going through a series of really weird vocal contortions. You wanna go to California? Though I do like some of the bars he drops on this track, like the one about her kind of repeating her bad decisions as if you were watching a 6-second Vine or something. And this is another moment where I'm actually enamored with the instrumental too. It's this sunny, lighthearted piece of funk with a lot of quirky, silly hand percussion worked in, a nimble bass line, and some shy keyboards that kind of pop in here and there. So even on this track, which I think is the worst track, there are some redeeming qualities to it. So again, while it does have its shortcomings, there are some tracks that I wish had better vocal performances, some tracks that I wish were a little meatier compositionally or a bit longer. I still think this is a quality project. The worst thing about this album, though, is that this might be the only time Donald Glover tries to do something like this, which is sad because he's way better at doing this than I had anticipated, because I do hear an incredible amount of potential in what he's doing here, not just because the highlights on this record are so high, but as far as a lot of the people reviving this sound right now, I think Donald has sort of carved out his own little niche within that just simply with this album alone. You know, he's not approaching this funk sound, he's not approaching this soul revival sound in the same way that his contemporaries are. I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this album. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave an angry comment in the comments if you're pissed off at my thoughts on this record. All sorts of links next to my head, other reviews, subscribe to the channel, official website. Hope you're well forever.